Good morning guys, or evening depending on what time you are watching this. It's morning here, so if I sound a little bit like I just woke up, it is because I just woke up. Today I am not wearing anything on my face because I'm going to be doing a foundation review for you. I'm going to be reviewing the Too Faced Born This Way oil-free, undetectable, medium to full coverage foundation. This one has been recently released here in Australia, probably about a month or so ago, and it has received a lot of hype online. It makes a lot of very, very lofty claims. 100% of people who tested this said that it blurred their imperfections. 98% said that it made their skin look perfect. 97% said this foundation provided natural coverage. So they are pretty high percentages. I was pretty excited to give this a shot. So let's zoom you in a little bit. Starting off with the packaging, we have 30 mils or 1 fluid ounce, so relatively standard frosted glass bottle with a pump. Quite nice there. I do think that all foundations should have a pump. It should be standard. I don't know why it's not. This gives you a decent amount of product there, and as you can see, it is not overly liquidy. It does have quite a creamy formula to it. I'm using the shade Nude today, which is the 4th lightest. There are 12 shades in the range that were released here in Australia. They have released an additional 6, bringing it to 18 in the range, but I don't think those additional 6 are available here yet. But it does get a thumbs up for a good wide shade range. There are both supposedly sort of yellow undertones, more pinky undertones. This one I think is on the kind of neutral side, and it's a relatively decent match for my sort of NC to NW20 skin. I kind of hover around there. I believe the recommended use of this product is to actually use it with the Too Faced Hangover Primer. I don't own that, but I do happen to have a sample of it. So for the test, I'm going to pop just a small amount of this just on one side of my face just to see if that makes any of a difference. I'm going to be applying with my IT Cosmetics foundation brush. While I'm applying this, let's talk about some of the added skincare benefits that this foundation claims to have. So it's supposed to have coconut water in it, or be infused with coconut water, which is supposed to help moisturize and replenish moisture in the skin. It also has hyaluronic acid, which is generally known to help moisturize the skin as well and smooth the skin. And then it has something called Alpine Rose, which I have not heard of before, but that's supposed to brighten the skin's appearance and promote elasticity. So I'm all for like adding skincare to foundation and makeup. I think that that's a great idea, particularly because I generally wear foundation all day, every day, but I don't know if I can really test that and be able to give you feedback on that. I think the only way that those benefits could really work for you if you were wearing this foundation every single day for a long period of time, and I tend to challenge my foundations up a lot, so it's kind of difficult for me to I guess know if that stuff is really working. Talking about what the foundation is supposed to actually look like on the skin now that I've kind of applied it, that is one pump pretty much all used up. Now, one of the big things about this foundation is it's supposed to be undetectable on the skin. And I've got to say, I mean, in the viewfinder, it doesn't really look like I am wearing, well, it does look like I'm wearing foundation, but like, I mean, you can't noticeably see it. It doesn't look overly heavy. It does look like it's given me sort of medium to full coverage, again, particularly on the viewfinder. In my magnified mirror, which is what I'm sort of looking at here, I can still see some redness. A lot of the redness has been taken down, but I can still see some of my hyperpigmentation that I experience up here. I can still kind of see I have some active blemishes. Awesome, I know, right along my chin and kind of in random places. I can kind of still see them, but the redness of those has been taken down, that's for sure. The foundation, how it's sitting on my skin, it's not 100% smooth or undetectable. It's particularly around my nose here where I have my more enlarged pores in this area. You can see the foundation on my skin, and you can kind of see it on the kind of, I guess, more, this area is generally a little bit flaky and a little bit creasy, and you can certainly see the product there. I kind of would say that it still is detectable on the skin. It is not overly heavy, particularly given that the coverage that it is giving, but it's not completely skin-like. I kind of disagree with that claim. The medium to full coverage claim, I do agree with it, but a little bit more. I'm going to use the other side of my brush to just dab on areas where I've got some blemishes. See if I can use it a bit like a concealer. hair just does not want to stay out of the way. Okay, so it did build up a little bit more over here. I can still just see it, so it's not 100% coverage, but I don't really like my foundations to do that anyway. I tend to use a concealer no matter what the foundation, and I prefer to spot conceal. I would say that you can build it up, but mainly on like areas where you don't have too many issues. Like I feel like if I was to try and build it up around my nose, that is where I'm going to cake up because it's already looking like a little bit more visible, a little bit more textured than I would like. Other things to note, it is oil free, it is paraben free, which is great. In terms of finish, I would probably call it at this point a demi matte finish. It's not completely matte, it is more skin-like. I mean, I've got quite bright lights on and I don't feel like I look overly shiny or overly dewy. It does have a little bit of that to it, so certainly not matte, certainly not like the dewiest foundation, kind of that in between. We will be testing the longevity of this product, however I do want to powder just ever so slightly, purely because no matter what foundation, I always apply a little bit of powder. I'm just going to be using a little bit of the Rimmel Stay Matte powder. I'm just going to apply a little bit just to the outer part of my nose here because that is where I tend to get a little bit shiny. Just a little bit in the center, maybe a bit in the forehead area here, and a little bit on the chin. Okay, I think that completes the demo portion of this foundation review. I'm going to put on the rest of my makeup and then check back in with you guys. The foundation's now had a little while to sit on my skin and it's still looking relatively good. I'm still going to be refuting that undetectable claim because I can see that I'm wearing foundation. I don't think anybody would believe that I was born this way. They just believe that I'm wearing foundation, and that is totally fine. The coverage is still quite good. I haven't added any extra concealer other than a little bit under my eyes, so we're going to see how it lasts on my blemishes. I will say that I do have a dry patch of skin here where the skin actually flakes, and while it hasn't like flaked away or anything like that yet, it is looking a little bit like crepey. So if you have really dry skin that's actually flaking, then you may have an issue with this foundation kind of creping up and kind of sort of sitting in the little lines there. In terms of my pores, it's kind of smoothed them out, but it's certainly not the most like smoothing foundation that I have ever used. I can't tell a ton of difference at this point between the primed side and the unprimed side, so I don't know if that really makes a ton of difference, or at least that particular primer. The blendability seemed to be the same on both sides and it was relatively easy to blend into my skin. I've got some more videos to film, so I will be checking back in with you guys. But one thing I wanted to mention before I go, I don't know if I talked about pricing of this one. So this one does retail for 58 Australian dollars and 39 US dollars. So in terms of currency conversion at this point, with the way the Australian dollar is, it doesn't have too much, if any, of a markup. By the time that you convert it, add tax and then add shipping, I think we're actually coming out pretty in line, if not it may be slightly cheaper than if you were to order it from the States and have it shipped to Australia. So that is good, thumbs up for that. It is available here in Australia through Mecca Maxima and Kit Cosmetics, or on the mecca.com.au website. Let's do a flash test. Ooh, can I find the button? This is what happens when you have a new phone. There doesn't actually seem to be a mention of SPF anywhere, but if I look at the ingredients list down the very bottom, it does say may contain titanium dioxide and iron oxides. So I don't know if it should give any flashback. It's hard for me to tell on me personally because I do have sort of pale skin to begin with, and I am using sort of a lighter foundation shade. There is a little bit of light reflection, but it's not too bad. So I just finished filming another 4 videos, I think, so it's been a little while now. It's now 11:18 a.m. so the foundation's probably been on for about 3 or so hours, maybe a little bit longer. And so far, I mean, in the camera it's looking quite nicely. Some of my natural kind of sheen is coming through a little bit, and at this point it's just looking quite glowy. I didn't add any extra highlight to my face. I will say when I look in my like magnified mirror, that around here, obviously I've been talking, so my mouth has been moving a lot talking in the videos. I've kind of gotten a few sort of lines where the foundation, I guess, is kind of, moving into my talking lines, smiling lines, and I've actually started to get a little bit of oil breakthrough here, which is interesting given that I did actually powder that one. My blemishes are still pretty much the same coverage as that they had. If I was wearing this on a normal day, I mean, you can't really see it in the camera, but certainly in, I guess, up close real life, if I was going for full coverage perfected skin, then I probably would have put concealer over that. So I've just got back from the shops and I've kind of zoomed you in a little bit so you can see my skin. It's now 3:46 p.m. so the foundation's been on for almost 7 hours, and I've got to say it's not looking the greatest. It's certainly not looking undetectable on the skin. You can probably see that there's a bit of like shine peeking through, mainly in the central portion of my face, which is where I generally get oily anyway. It's not particularly hot, so I haven't started sweating. I think on a sweaty day it would probably be even worse. Probably my most sort of the annoying thing about it is that it's become really obvious. It's kind of worn away a bit on my nose, around my mouth. The foundation's kind of, I guess it's almost like it's caked up a bit. It's gone textured, so it's still there, and it's still covering some things, but it's not looking smooth. It has kind of worn away a little bit around my jaw here where my breakouts are a little bit more visible. Part of that may be me touching my skin. And the other thing that I wanted to comment on was the colour. You can't see as much in the viewfinder, but I can certainly see in real life, and I even sort of asked my sister to check just to get a different opinion. And I feel like it's gone a touch darker and a touch pinker on my skin, so it's oxidized ever so slightly. The color match wasn't perfect to begin with. I feel like I'd be in between shades, but when it went on, it was definitely more of a better match than it is now. My face is looking darker than my neck. It has now been about 10 hours since I applied my foundation, and I'm ready to get ready for bed. So I'm going to finish up the video here. I probably could test the longevity for a little bit longer, but I'm thinking that this is kind of where it's getting to. I have definitely got some oil breakthrough through my generally oily areas, and I haven't touched up with any extra powder at all. I would say that this foundation is probably, particularly if you have oily skin or an oily T-zone, is going to be one where you're going to need to blot and repowder throughout the day. I don't think it has the greatest oil control properties. Even though it is oil free, it doesn't seem to stop oil breakthrough, and I've definitely sort of lost some of the foundation on my nose because of that. For basically the rest of the face, I can still see the product there, so it does have some staying power, but it has worn away of some of my blemishes, and the way in which it has worn, it's not quite as smooth as it was when I applied it. You can certainly see it on my face, and I think if I was going out somewhere or doing something, I would definitely want to touch it up. I wouldn't want anybody coming up too close to me. I would probably overall rate this foundation maybe a 5.5 out of 10. I think given the price of the product and the quite lofty claims that it has, I didn't feel like it lived up to those standards, and that's why I would mark it that way. I do think that there are other foundations that wear quite similarly that are cheaper, and I think there are even some more inexpensive foundations that wear maybe even better than the way this one does, sort of controls my oils. As a general rule, I don't repowder throughout the day for most foundations. So I am probably not the oiliest person in the world, and I definitely would feel the need to repowder with this one. So that being said, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad foundation. If you're happy to touch up and repowder, then you could certainly try this one. I do think that with any foundation review, never just take one. This is purely my experience. If you're going to buy a foundation, watch a lot of reviews. Watch ones that give it a positive rating, ones that give a negative rating, and see why for both, and that way you can make a decision. I think if you have quite really dry skin, or you're dealing with a lot of fine lines or wrinkles, this may be not one for you as well, just because I feel like it didn't really sit nicely. It wasn't sort of smoothing, it didn't smooth over the lines that I have sort of around my mouth. But in saying that, I do think that this one would probably be better for somebody who has normal to dry skin as opposed to really oily skin because of that oil breakthrough. I also think in looking at the color that it's probably worth trying to get a sample and wearing it throughout the day before you actually buy the foundation, just to make sure that the color doesn't change too much on you, particularly if you are in between shades. But I think that's pretty much it for this foundation review. I hope you found it helpful. If you have tried the Too Faced Born This Way foundation, let me know your thoughts. I do know that some people really love it, so if you are hoping for a more positive review, don't necessarily be discouraged. You may have a different experience to me. I'm just saying that it didn't quite work for me, and as somebody who has access to a lot of foundations, I do have an excessive collection, this isn't one that I would reach for over a lot of my other ones. I'll include any extra information that I have, as well as links and prices and all those stats in the description box below in case you missed anything. And I would love to know what foundation you would like me to review next. Let me know if I've covered everything that you need. I kind of had a list on this back of this piece of paper to talk about coverage, finish, longevity, oil control, blendability, application, price, packaging, shade range, availability, claims, and ingredients. So I'm hoping that I've covered all that, but if there's other things that you want me to cover in a foundation review, definitely let me know, and I'll talk to you guys all next time. Bye!